A haunting mist over Black Hollow. The wind howled as a dense, eerie mist settled over the small town of Black Hollow, once known for its peaceful beauty, now hiding a dark and terrifying secret. Located far from the nearest town, nestled between towering mountains, Black Hollow's past was steeped in darkness, its soil rich with stories that the living were too afraid to tell. Legends spoke of spirits wandering the foggy streets, a restless dead left behind by horrors that were far too unspeakable to be mentioned by anyone sane. The air in Black Hollow felt thick, as though the very land had absorbed too much grief and blood to ever allow peace again. For generations, nothing had stirred in Black Hollow, but there was one name the villagers still spoke of: Isabel Carter. She was known for fearlessly walking into haunted places where others dared not. Over the years, she'd traveled to places thought to be cursed, risking her own safety to uncover the truth behind terrifying events. And this time, Black Hollow called to her, its whispers beckoning in the night, as though it were waiting for her to unravel its twisted mysteries. When she first heard about the haunting of Black Hollow, about the way homes became cursed, families disappeared without a trace, and how the dark presence of an ancient evil clung to the very town, Isabel knew she had to see it for herself. Armed only with a camera, audio recorders, and a heart full of skepticism, she arrived on an ominous autumn evening. If this town is as haunted as they say, I'll get to the bottom of it, she whispered to herself. But Isabel quickly learned that Black Hollow wasn't just another haunted town. It had a history, a living nightmare that had been waiting for someone like her to investigate. The town wasn't looking for answers. It had long buried them under layers of fear and terror. Nightfall brings terror. The day died slowly, and as dusk fell, the sky bled a bruised shade of purple. The wind started to pick up, casting eerie, shrill sounds through the empty streets. As Isabel walked deeper into the heart of the town, the ancient stone buildings creaked and groaned under the pressure of time. It was quiet, too quiet. In the oppressive silence, something seemed to move just out of sight, shadows flitting across dark alleyways. She felt as though the town itself were watching her, studying her every movement. Turning her flashlight up to illuminate her path, Isabel's eyes settled on a crumbling chapel on the town's edge. It had the look of something that time had tried to erase but could never quite succeed. The chapel stood as a monument to the town's dark past, and Isabel couldn't resist. This place was calling her. But as she crossed the threshold, a freezing wind slammed the door shut behind her with such force it rattled the walls. Her heart skipped a beat. The air grew thick, each breath more difficult to take than the last. It was as if she had entered another world and steeped in agony and despair. Her flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the altar. The walls whispered something beyond hearing, a cold, almost imperceptible sound that sent a shiver down her spine. The temperature dropped suddenly, turning the room into a frigid nightmare. Her breath formed visible clouds in the air as she tightened her grip on the camera. And then she heard its soft, childlike whisper, "Leave, now." Isabel spun around, scanning every corner of the chapel, but found nothing. The whisper echoed once more, louder this time, like a warning that shook her core. Out of the darkness, a pale figure appeared in front of her, an innocent-looking child, but with empty, hollow eyes and a twisted, contorted face that only evoked fear. Her pulse racing, Isabel stammered, "Oh, who are you?" But the child said nothing. Instead, it pointed toward a corner where a shadowy figure lurked, a man shrouded in darkness. Isabel tried to step toward the figure, but the walls bent like liquid, shadows clinging to her. trying to pull her into the darkness. The child's laugh echoed around her, distorted and hollow, as ghostly faces screamed from the walls, clawing for her. Desperate to break free, Isabel scrambled backwards. "This is just a hallucination," she repeated to herself, trying to calm her racing mind. But deep down, she knew this was no hallucination. The church had become something else, the buried truth. Suddenly, the floor beneath her feet trembled, and the chapel walls seemed to disappear entirely. She found herself stumbling into the forgotten crypts beneath Black Hollow. The tombstones were cracked, and the stench of decay lingered in the air. The sounds of the dead seemed to creep from every corner, the spirits of long-dead villagers whispering her name, warning her. In the gloom of the crypts, Isabel's eyes landed on an inscription etched into one old stone. "Crypt the Hollow Ones, those who were never meant to rest." She wiped away the dust, and beneath it, she saw blood-red writing. It had long since dried, but the words were unmistakable. "They come for you. They'll always come for you, for the pact made so long ago." Before she could process what she was reading, haunting visions filled Isabel's mind. The Hollow Ones were not just ghosts, these were souls bound by a pact centuries old. The original villagers had made a dark deal, offering their own lives in return for protection from an ancient, evil force. They had sacrificed the living for the dead, and their souls remained trapped here, serving that evil force. And now, Isabel was in their sights. Panic clawed at Isabel's mind as the walls of the crypt closed in. The temperature dropped to an unbearable level, and the whispers grew louder. Her legs felt weak as the force of the curse drained her strength. Something reached for her, an unseen hand, invisible but real. She had to escape, but where could she go? There was nowhere in Black Hollow that was safe. The final confrontation. Suddenly, a figure appeared, tall, cloaked in tattered black robes, and with glowing eyes that pierced the darkness. The air grew colder still, and the crypt seemed to distort with an unnatural energy. With terrifying speed, the figure lunged at Isabel, its voice hissing in her ears. "Leave or join us." With a scream that ripped from her throat, Isabel forced herself into a run, pushing the figure away. Every step seemed like it took her further from the safety she so desperately needed. Her pulse hammered in her chest as she scrambled toward the chapel, knowing it was the only exit, her only chance to escape the growing terror. But the town had noticed her now. The spirits, long dead, rose from every corner, their gaunt, hollow eyes glowing in the dark. The streets of Black Hollow twisted into a maze of shadow and darkness, the very walls now alive with malevolent energy. She was surrounded, trapped. She could not run. There was no more escape. In the center of the town square, Isabel found herself standing face to face with the restless spirits of those who once lived there. They were no longer human, their eyes vacant and filled with darkness. Their tortured, silent screams filled the air, dragging at Isabel's very soul. But she wasn't done yet. Desperation sent her searching through the ruins until she found an ancient dagger buried deep in the earth. Its hilt, etched with forgotten symbols, was her only hope. She lifted the dagger and, with trembling hands, carved a protective sigil into the ground. With a chant, she prayed that the curse would be lifted, begging for freedom from the twisted village that had consumed her. But then, for now, as Isabel finished the chant, the ground trembled beneath her. The spirits frowned, and for one brief moment, everything went silent. But then, in an eruption of noise and terror, the earth split wide open, dragging the spirits into the abyss. swallowing the curse whole. Black Hollow fell silent for the first time in centuries. She stumbled away from the crypts, heart racing, lungs desperate for fresh air. But as she made her way to the edge of the cursed town, the wind carried a final, ominous whisper. You cannot escape. We are everywhere. You will never be free of us. Isabel ran, but as she crossed the threshold of Black Hollow, she knew one thing for sure: her escape might have been temporary, but the horror would follow her forever.